chill babies, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading a story that I wrote in high school. This is also my first soft-spoken ASMR video, so I hope you guys like it. So, the name of this story is called The Curse of the Speckled Stone. To preface this story, I'm going to read you the summary that I wrote when I published it on Wattpad, which you can go and find. It exists on the internet still. Living as a serf in medieval Russia was far from enjoyable for a number of reasons. John's mother is in death's doorstep, and the nearby shaman can do nothing to help. In despair, young John undertakes a dangerous and risky task from a stranger, hoping the reward will save his mother. But will his foolish fantasies cost his sister her life? Everything is black. There is no what was or is to come. Slowly, the dark dissipates. A constant murmur rises up. It grows continually more clear until it forms into words. There must be something, falters a girl's voice. I have told you, I've done everything possible, an older woman grumbles. I will take but half of what you were to pay me. You will need it when she passes. The girl starts to sob. The door slams, and as someone, likely the older woman, leaves the small room residence. It is getting darker again, and the colors fade away, but the ears are still alert, and comes in the darkness a whisper from a young boy. It sounds as if the voice is miles away, but the words are clear. I'll find a way to heal you, Ma. Please, don't die. John is in the church again, for the 5th time this week. Priest Popov is glad to see John praying, since John would never come, save the Sabbath. The priest knew that it was only because John's mother was on her deathbed, but it was good for him to come and pray all the less. Lost in thought, Priest Popov hadn't realized that the boy had gotten up and was headed out the door. John pondered where to go now. His daily work was done. I suppose I have time to head down to the river before curfew, he mumbled to himself. He started towards the river, which led him through the village. Walking as quickly as possible without looking too odd, John hoped that Yelena and Bozena were out somewhere. Unfortunately, they were not. Oh, look, Yelena. Is that strange redhead kid with the weird name? Bozena remarked. Just keep walking and ignore them, John told himself. Bozena stepped out in front of him, blocking his path. Bozena was only 13, a year older than him, but was almost a head taller and of equal strength. Where are you going so fast, John? That's none of your business, Bozena. I bet he's going over to see that strange traveler down by the river next to the mill, Yelena said matter-of-factly. Well, actually, John said as he stuck his hand in his pocket. Good, he still had that string in his pocket. Well, actually what? Bozena demanded. She put her hands on her hips and leaned over like a mother does when she's scolding her naughty children. I was just about to go show Milosh something, John continued. What? Bozena and Yelena asked, interested. Oh, just a snake. John pulled the string out of his pocket and threw it at the girls. They panicked just enough before realizing it was a string for John to run off unseen. Yelena had said something about a traveler down by the mill, and John, being your average curious 12-year-old boy, decided he wanted to go see this person for himself. Now out of the village, John broke into a run. He reached the mill in hardly any time. There didn't seem to be anyone around, but there he could see someone down in the little cave at the bank of the river. John shimmied down the bank and immediately tripped over someone and fell face first into the sand. Spitting out the sand and wiping his face, John looked up angrily to see who he had tripped over. A man about the age of 25 stared back at him with a face of pain. Mind watching where you're going next time, boy? He scoffed. You aren't doing any favors to my broken leg here. Sorry, sir, John muttered, still displeased. The man shrugged, leaned back and closed his eyes. John, though still curious about the traveler, got up to climb back up the bank. He was embarrassed and covered with wet sand. Come here, boy, the man said just as John had started climbing up. Reluctantly, John came back. Look here. The man produced a paper out of his bag. Can you read this? No, John replied. Of course he couldn't. Well, I can, the man boasted. And I'll tell you what it says. He cleared his throat. Magic healing tree has been found in an old city on the mountain 4 miles down the Don River. The fruit from this tree is better than any shaman's spells. Battle the dragon in the city and the fruit is yours. The man grinned. What about it, boy? John was intrigued. If he had that fruit, he could heal his sick, dying mother. You think that's real? I believe it, bellowed the man. And here's something else. If you climb that mountain and bring me back 3 of the fruits, I'll pay you handsomely. The man reached into his bag and pulled out some money. Here, he handed it to John. Bring back the fruits and I'll give you that tripled. John could hardly believe it. He stared down at the fur money with its official seal, taking it in. I'll bring you back those fruits, sir, John exclaimed. Give me 3 days and I'll meet you here at this time again with your fruits. I can promise you I'll get them. The next day, John got out of bed before the moon had even started to fade away. He gathered what he would need as quietly as he could, but it's hard not to wake others when you live in a one-room house. John, what are you doing? John's sister rubbed her eyes. Nothing, John stammered, only making himself look guilty of something. Wait, are you packing? John, what do you think you're doing? Trying to run away to leave your poor sister to work extra from you? I thought... I'm not running away, John cut her off. I'm climbing that mountain. He points in the mountain's direction. There's a magic fruit tree up there. Plus, if I bring 2 of the magic healing fruits back to the traveler down by the mill, he'll pay me triple this. John showed his sister the money. Her eyes widened in astonishment. Then she slapped him. Ow! What was that for? Trying to knock sense back into you. Magic fruit? This is some kind of scam or trick, but I'm not exactly sure what. Go if you want, but don't expect me to bail you out of whatever crazy situation you find yourself in. His sister proceeded to get back in bed, ignoring him. John quickly finished packing and headed out. The journey to the mountain was quick, but he would have had to go past the old crone's rickety house, and there was no telling what to expect from her. John quietly snuck by her house, hoping she was asleep. What are you doing here, lad? John shrieked, surprised. Oh, shut your mouth. What are you doing here? The hag demanded. I'm just heading up this mountain. Just to see it, you know? Stupid boy, the old woman muttered. Well, I won't stop you. You won't be getting a proper burial if you die up there, though. The woman hobbled off to her cottage, and John continued, though slightly more unsure if all the risks would be worth the possible reward. The mountain was not too bad of a challenge for a strong young boy, and John made quick progress. By the time the sun began to rise, John was nearly halfway up. Tired, he plopped himself down on a rock and began to gnaw on an apple he had brought along. Now with some time to take in his surroundings, John noticed things he hadn't before. At least 1/4 of the trees looked like they had all been burnt. Odd and unnatural piles of dried lava were sprinkled up on the mountain. A couple of trees looked like someone had snapped them clean in half. John began to feel uneasy. He hadn't thought much of the dragon that the paper had mentioned, and had thought it wouldn't pose to be too much of a problem. However, the strange doings in the environment seemed to be those of a creature of a significant size. Suddenly, he heard an ugly, bone-rattling shriek in the distance. John froze. Slowly, he drew out the traveler's sword, which he was given yesterday by the man before John had headed home. He continued up the mountain slowly, pausing at every sound. Nearing the summit, John could faintly see what looked like building ruins. What he didn't see was the dragon as it snuck up behind him. He felt the warm dragon breath down his back, and in mere seconds he was on the ground with searing pain coming from his side. The dragon had clawed him. Immediately, out of instinct, John defended himself. He swung his sword in the air frantically, yet managed to smack the dragon in the eye. Enraged, the dragon began to hurl lava from its mouth, nearly missing John each time. "Someone help me, please!" John yelled, hoping that someone else was as stupid as he was and was climbing the mountain. Fortunately for him, someone did come, but down from the city. A girl, about 15 years old, with wavy dark brown hair braided all the way down her back, appeared almost suddenly, as if she'd been watching the whole time. "Hand me the sword," she demanded. John did it gladly. To his surprise, she threw it down the mountain. The dragon ran after it, completely forgetting the two of them. "I suppose you're here for the city with the magic tree, right?" the girl asked. John nodded. "You're nearly there. I'll show you the quickest route up. Also, wrap that wound up," she said, throwing him a long strip of fabric. About 15 minutes later, they reached the summit. The city was completely ruined, and if John came for that, he would have been disappointed. He came, however, for the tree, which stood in the center of the city bearing plenty of fruit. John opened his bag and excitedly climbed the tree and harvested 3 of the shiny pink pear-shaped fruits and carefully packed them away. He climbed down and was confronted by a chilling look from the girl. "Do you have a sister?" she asked. "Yup," he replied, preoccupied with his fruits. Good, very good," she murmured. "You know," she said, sneaking over to him, "you should really bring her here. With her help, you could take all of these fruits. Imagine the fortune." John looked up at her. "But what about the dragon?" "Oh, I'll take care of it." She dismissed the thought. John thought that bringing his sister up to collect more fruit would be a good idea. Like the girl said, imagine the fortune. He headed home quickly. He did not want to be in trouble for not getting to his work. The trip down was much quicker and easier. When he got back down, he stopped off at his cottage to hide his possessions, and ran over to go to work in the fields. That night, John told his sister about his adventure. "So, will you go tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. "Fine," she sighed, "since you want me to so bad." Truthfully, she was interested herself. The next day, in the early morning, John and his sister headed up the mountain together. Halfway up, they came across a girl who had helped John last time. "The dragon is sleeping. It's perfectly safe to climb up," she informed them. "But let's not take this path. I know a quicker route." The trio reached the summit in record time. "Oh, wow," gushed John's sister as they came up to the tree. "It's so beautiful." John scampered up the tree and plucked off the fruits and handed them down to his sister. Meanwhile, the mysterious girl had snuck off. In the distance, a tree broke, and an ugly noise that sounded almost like a yawn was heard by the 2 siblings at the tree. "John, I think it's the dragon," his sister half whispered to him, scared. The strange girl had returned to this tree, smiling creepily. "Oh no," she shrieked, faking alarm. "Here, both of you, hold this stone. It'll get rid of the dragon." By now the dragon had spotted them and was making its way over to them quickly. John and his sister both grabbed the shiny brown, white, and green speckled stone. The dragon stopped. Something strange began to happen. The girl started to chuckle under her breath. The dragon slowly began to look more human, and John's sister began to look more like a dragon. Surprised, John jumped back, still holding the stone. The girl was laughing now. "Have fun passing the curse over to someone else. It took me years. But now, finally, I and my sister are rid of it," she yelled excitedly and sprinted over to the dragon, who looked more like a girl than a dragon. Angry, John ran after her. "What do you think you're doing? Help me out here," he screamed and pulled out a hatchet. "Fine," she answered, as John could easily hit her, and she, of course, would not like to be hit. "Here's the tip. Give the stone to a pair of siblings, and the youngest girl will turn into a dragon, and your sister will turn back." The dragon, now fully human, grabbed the sister's arm and pulled her out of John's reach, and they ran off together quickly. John thought fast. In a crevice in a nearby wall, 2 young birds chirped. He knew it would be kind of cruel, but he wanted his sister back. He found the bird's nest and placed the stone between the hatchlings. One of them began to grow little scales. John turned to look back at his sister, who was turning into a human. Soon the little bird had become a little dragon, which wasn't that much of a threat at all, and was actually kind of cute. Then John and his fully human sister climbed back down the mountain with all the fruits they could carry, and made it back in time to head over to the fields without being too terribly late. They didn't know what became of the people and the creatures they had met on the mountain, but they didn't care. Their mother was healed instantly by the fruit, and that's all that mattered to them. John, also being an honest young man, kept his promise to the traveler, and delivered the 3 fruits, and was paid for them like the traveler said he would. And so, John, his sister, and his mother all lived happily ever after, as one could live as a serf in middle-aged Russia for the rest of their lives. So that is the end of that very short story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's probably not the best thing you've ever heard, but hopefully it will help you to fall asleep tonight. See you next time.